Shalawam Saints, this is Jerron127 coming to you guys with another video. This video is basically about a dream I had about a good maybe 6, 7, maybe even 8 years ago. Back when I started my journey into the truth. And I believe at this point, I was on fire. In other words, in the spirit, I was on fire, you know what I'm saying? So this is probably why I received that dream back then. And again, this is in the beginning of my journey into the truth. Um, so without further ado, I'm gonna hop right into it. So, the dream, it took place in my grandmother's condo, her old condominium where she used to stay, and it was Christmas time. So our family traditionally, growing up, we would always gather on Christmas Eve, and meet all the family. We would all gather together, and just do what people do on Christmas Eve. You know what I'm saying? So that's pretty much what's going on. I'm pretty positive it was Christmas Eve and not Christmas Day, just because the tradition of us coming together on Christmas Eve has always been there. Not to say that the Christmas Day thing wasn't there either, but that's a whole nother discussion in its entirety in regards to um, not celebrating Christmas. But again, this was years ago before kind of before I knew all of that. So at the time, it was Christmas Eve. So it's Christmas Eve in my grandmother's condo, and I'm sitting at the window. And right in her window, you can, she's on the second floor. So, kind of high up, but not too high up. So I'm sitting by the window and I'm just looking up at the clouds, at the sky. And I see these big cumulus nimbus type clouds, huge clouds. Anybody not familiar with those? Like those big puffy, uh, I'm not gonna say storm clouds, but they probably are gonna form eventually into storm clouds. That's what it appeared to be. So as I'm looking up at these clouds, I'm watching the formation of the clouds as they begin to kind of change or morph or grow even. And at first I didn't think anything of it. I'm thinking, oh, okay, it's just gonna be a storm coming, that kind of thing. But then as I look closer, a literal gold gate forms on top of these clouds. So at this point, I'm like, whoa, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm like, what is, I'm like, kind of like, what's going on? So a big gold gate forms on top of the clouds. And then almost instantly, like that, the whole scene changed. Like, I get taken up, and all of a sudden, I'm in this big, like, boat thing. Like, it's a, if anybody's ever seen some of those, Animal Planet documentaries where they go to like Madagascar or Africa or somewhere like that, and you see like those big straw rafter looking boat things. That's pretty much what I ended up going into. So it's like this big old giant rafter thing, and this thing was big, huge. Like, I can't say an exact size for this thing, but I want to say it was probably at least like the size of a building. Like this, yeah, I would say about the size of a building, like as far as length is concerned. So I want to say in excess of at least 200 or 300 feet was the length of this big giant rafter boat thing. So as that's happening, I hear at the same time as I get scooped up in an instant and go into this rafter. And at this time, we're kind of moving up, we're going up, and I hear that gospel song. One of my favorite gospel songs is I can't think of the group, but I know the Chicago choir was sing it, and it's called um I think it's called Jesus, You Are, something like that. And again, I was initially in the house, or in the, excuse me, in the condo, looking up at the clouds, just looking up at the sky, at the clouds. Big gold gate forms, and then like that, in an instant, get taken up on this raft or boat thing, raft slash boat. Not sure what it is, but boat slash raft. The terminology. So on this thing in the background, I can hear this gospel music playing, and it's playing pretty relatively loud, but not too loud where it's kind of overpowering. And we're going up. So as we're going up, I'm looking I'm looking out the boat as we're going up. And not only do I see dozens of other boats, but I also see the city of Chicago. For those of you who don't know, I am from Chicago. I still reside and live in Chicago, and it's just my hometown. So that's what's happening. So the boats we're going over the Chicago skyline, and we're going like over the shorelines into Lake Michigan. So as we're going over the skyline and going through Chicago, I see I pretty much see destruction happening on the surface, on Earth. So in the city, I was able to see like lines of people lined up going into different buildings, and like big lines of people, like just, man, I want to say like hundreds of people in one line going into one building, and each person, or better yet, every dozen or so people, there's like this big soldier type of guy or something. He dressed in all black, and he was big. Like these soldier dudes, they was a lot bigger than like the regular people. You know what I'm saying? Like, regular person, for a woman, you looking at average height 5'6", 5'7". Average height of a man, anywhere from 5'10" to 6 feet, somewhere in there. But these guys, these dudes was like probably I want to say at least 7 feet or taller. Like they were just ginormously much bigger than regular people. Like it was almost laughable how much bigger these soldiers were, and they were dressed in all black, and they had like their assault weapons or assault rifles with them, and you couldn't see their face either. Like they literally was wearing like all black, and you couldn't see their faces. They had, from what I recall, they had, the assault rifles with them, and they were kind of just directing the traffic of the people going into the building. And I thought that was interesting. And then as we're still, the Raptors are still going over the skyline, but they're going very slowly. And I want to say that the people on the earth, they were not aware of the boats going over, because the boats, they weren't going fast at all. They were going at a nice moderate speed, but they weren't really going that fast. Um, so if anybody was really paying attention, you can clearly see, wow, it's dozens of giant boats in the sky going really slow. What is going on? But that didn't occur. Everything that was happening on the earth, it was as if they were completely oblivious to the raptors in the sky. So as I'm still looking down, I see these big tank things. And they look like tanks, but they were way bigger than regular tanks. These things was like, I don't know, a regular tank is, pretty big, like the size of a like the size of a truck, small truck, medium truck, something like that. These tanks was probably, man, they was probably like 5 times that size. So you think of a tank just 5 times bigger. Big tanks. So it was these big giant tanks, and their turret, it wasn't like a gun barrel. Instead of a gun barrel, what these things were, they were like javelins. And these javelins, anybody know what a javelin is? A javelin is kind of like a hook or an anchor. So these big giant tanks, they drove up on each side of the Sears Tower, and they shot the javelins into the Sears Tower. And I'm in the Raptors, we're still going over, but we're going over slowly. I see I see these giant tanks, as they shoot their javelins into the Sears Tower, and they just yank it down. They literally just pulled the Sears Tower down. These big giant tanks. So, obviously that's a lot of strength because obviously a building, especially a building as big as the Sears Tower, that would take a lot of torque and a lot of power to even think about yanking something down like that. So these things was, if anything, they were just powerful. They were big, but they were also powerful. Obviously, if just for something to pull something that size down, that got to be some tremendous power. So as that's happening, and at the time, I'm like, what is going on down there? So that's happening, and I'm trying to recall if I don't think I recall seeing like any soldiers coming out of the sky or anything. I just remember seeing those big giant soldiers, not giant soldiers, but really really big dudes on the ground, kind of directing the traffic of the lines of people going into this one building. And if I can recall the faces of these people, they didn't look happy. You know what I'm saying? They didn't look like they were happy. If anything, they looked a bit anxious and maybe a bit stressed, maybe distressed. They didn't look happy, that's for sure, going into these buildings. Um, as that's happening, I look back inside the rafter and I see a line of people. This line of people, all dressed in all white. Um, I was dressed in all white. My family was there. My mom, dad, and brother. They were all there with me, and we were all dressed in white. Um, for some reason, my mom, I guess I want to say symbolically speaking, is because my brother, he still seemed to be attached to the world, which is why my mom, she ended up hitting like a lever on the side of the wall that said out or something like that, and she flipped it, and then my brother fell out the rafter. Like he literally fell out the rafter, and he's going back towards the ground. And I'm like, yo, I'm like, that's my brother. I'm like, what are you doing? So it was kind of, it's kind of funny, but it's kind of sad at the same time because I'm not really familiar or too sure of the meaning of that. And this was years ago, but she like almost like flushed my brother out of the rafter, and he fell back down to the earth. So I'm like, yo, what are you doing? But I didn't dwell on it too long, which is the funny thing about it. So as I peer back, I see this line of people, again, dressed in all white. And these brothers that I was seeing, they were mainly they were like people that I follow in regards to sermons and things like that from the GOCC, the Gathering of Christ Church. I'll tag them in the description box. But yeah, I was seeing those brothers, like those elders that helped me get into the truth. I saw them in that line, and I thought that was, pretty amazing, pretty interesting, because again, great brothers, they only go by the truth and they only go by the scriptures in regards to things, and they prove all things via research and via the scriptures. So they were there, and then I was at the back of the line, mind you. So as I'm, it's a line of people wearing all white, like, white robes or something like that. And we had palms in our hands, in our right hands. And it was just a line of people. I'm at the back of the line. And my family, they're at the back of the line. Uh, After that little stint with my brother, it's like they weren't there anymore for some reason. I was the only one left. And I don't know. And I was just like, one thing about me is I do have a tendency to get lazy and get tired. So I'm just like, man, let me just sit down since I'm already at the back of the line. So I'm like, man, let me just sit down. So I sit down, and as I sit down, I see a guy sitting across from me. And this was a mysterious looking man. He looked distinguished, I want to say, but a very distinguished, distinctive looking guy. Um, I can't tell you who he was, but he looked important. You know what I'm saying? I can't say if that was Christ or anything because he didn't look like Christ. But I mean, he may have very well been some kind of prophet, um, from the scriptures. So he very well could have been a prophet. I'm not too sure. He didn't actually say anything to me, but he kind of had like a look of disappointment on his face at me. Um, I guess because I was sitting down, like he just kind of, kind of had that kind of look and kind of like, kind of sigh expression on his face as he's looking at me, and that was pretty much the dream. In regards to that was probably one of the few, if you want to call it a rapture dream, you can call it that. That was probably one of the few actual rapture dreams that I've had where I was taken up into an instant with a bunch of other people, and we were in these big rafter boat type things, dressed in all white, and we had palms in our right hands. And again, at this point, like, yeah, I was already, I grew up in the church, but at that particular point in time, I didn't really have the scriptures on my mind. So again, we're dressed in all white, have palms in our right hands. If anybody reads, Revelation, those people were with God. The 144,000. They were dressed in all white and they had palms in their right hands, and they were singing a song that nobody else knew. So that's going without saying that I'm pretty sure I may have more of those dreams. But that was a really interesting dream that I've been wanting to share for a little while. And again, this happened years ago, like 6, 7 years ago. And, I still remember that dream, every little detail in that dream I remember. So, it's a relatively interesting dream. Anybody that has any interpretations or uh, any any scriptures they want to add to it or any comments, y'all know where to drop that at in the comment box below. And shalawam, everybody. You guys have a good one.